Welcome to The Real Life Buyer. In this podcast, you will discover interviews with procurement and technical experts, business owners, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. These experts will help you to develop and grow, accelerate your career, improve your business, save money, and buy smart. Now introducing The Real Life Buyer, Dave Barr.
Hello, and welcome to The Real Life Buyer. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Ty Belknap, SEO expert and owner of Port Bell Inc., based in Tacoma, Washington. Back in 2002, at 36, Ty left the corporate world and established Port Bell Inc. Ty has 3 degrees in leadership, including a Doctorate of Strategic Leadership in Life Coaching. He has authored 3 books, Timeless SEO Secrets, Leadership for Introverts, and How to Get Exploding Referrals Through Networking, and even has his own podcast called Easy SEO and more. Now today, I'm looking to split this podcast into 2 halves. The first, as you would expect, will be delving into the mysteries of search engine optimization to improve your website visibility on web searches and help drive more traffic to your business. But secondly, to explore the experiences and knowledge Ty has gathered as a business owner, employing personnel working remotely for him, not just from a local perspective, but global. So without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome Ty onto the podcast.
Hey, Dave. Great to be here. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks for coming along. So, Ty, let's start with you explaining the background leading up to the establishment of your SEO optimization business service and what additional services and support you currently offer to your clients.
Fantastic. Actually, I used to work I was a techie nerd doing network engineering, working on huge servers. I used to work on the Hotmail and MSNBC servers, even at Microsoft. And I worked at Microsoft a couple of different times. I didn't learn the first time I worked there. And nothing against Microsoft. They've actually changed quite a lot from the time I worked there. I know a guy who works there now, and he says it's a completely different environment, which is great. But the second time I worked at Microsoft, I realized that I don't like working for other people. And so I started my own business. I started a web design business. Actually, it's what this originally was. And I had done web design on the side for several years before that as a side hustle. I decided to just break out on my own and do it. In my first year in business, almost to the dollar, I made 10% of what I made my last year at Microsoft.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I realized that it wasn't working. I mean, that was no money at all. It wasn't even a livable wage, really. And so I had to decide, do I go back and go get another job and go back into the corporate world, which I didn't like in the first place? And I decided no. And I realized what I needed to do is I needed to learn marketing, because you can have the best business in the world. It's not going to help a lot if you don't know marketing, or at least have someone on your staff that knows marketing. That's how big marketing is. And of course, this was back in 2002. So online marketing wasn't even heard of. It didn't even have a name. Yet we talk about things now like SEO, search engine optimization, unheard of back then. And nobody knew anything about that. And so I had to learn it myself, I should say. I started watching the search engines. Google was pretty much new back then. It was gaining ground quick, but the big search engines was Yahoo, really, back in 2002. So I watched what they did and how websites got higher in the search engines, and I really just taught myself how to do SEO at a time before SEO was even a tag word.
Right. Okay. You say it wasn't well known. How on earth did you sort of unpick what activities, what changes that need to be made to try and, say, rank a website higher?
Well, I am a techie nerd. So what I would do is I'd look at the websites that were at the top of the search engines, and I'd look at the back end of them, because there's a way to do that. Even today, you can still do that. And I don't recommend it because it's a lot of coding and it's really techie stuff. But I was able to figure out what those websites were doing to get to the top of the search engine. The ones that weren't paid, of course, you can pay to get any website to the top of the search engines. You have enough money, you can be at the top. But I wanted to find out what the websites were doing that weren't the paid websites. And that's what SEO, search engine optimization, is today. It's the stuff where you get naturally higher. Of course, quite often you still have to pay someone to get you there. But the work that people like I do can stay there for months or even years after I've done it and still help the website. Whereas you do a paid ad, the minute you stop paying, your ad goes away. You're no longer at the top.
Right. So I guess your inspiration for creating your book, the Timeless SEO Secrets, that was because there was very few people who knew what you knew, and you felt there was an opportunity to show your credibility and competence.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yes. The main reason for my book was really, it actually was a calling card originally. I originally wrote it for people that had contacted me but hadn't hired my company yet. So I would send that out to them as a thank you. And I wrote the book because the big thing I've determined or figured out through all this time is, there's a lot of things that change on the internet. Back in 2002, you couldn't put a video onto a website. You could barely put an image onto a website. It was a lot more difficult than it is now. There was no such thing as social media. The big social media ones before Prodigy and America Online were gone. Google Plus, Facebook, even MySpace wasn't quite there yet. But what I learned was on websites throughout all this time, there are certain things, that have changed and you have to do differently. But there are some things that I could do back even as far as 1995, but I can still do today to help a website get higher in the search engines. And that's why I wrote the book, Timeless SEO Secrets. That's why I call it timeless. They still work even now, even with video and audio becoming so good and transcribing becoming much more efficient. These timeless SEO secrets, I think, will still be around for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Fantastic. So obviously it appears that, well, with any luck anyway, but we keep hearing otherwise, that the pandemic may be over.
Yeah.
It depends which day of the week you look at the news, I guess.
Yeah.
And what that seems to be doing is breeding a whole bunch of people who want to become an entrepreneur, want to take a more active role in shaping their own future. And so this potentially means an explosion in the creation of homemade websites. So this is a real opportunity, I guess, for yourself. Can you talk us through some of the many ways you can go about trying to create your own website at a relatively low cost?
Yes, definitely. And I'll go over some ways that you want to be careful of as well. I don't mean this anything against any of the companies that I talk about, but one of the biggest companies that people go to, especially to create a free website, is Wix right now. You can do your full website. They've got great plugins. It's actually pretty simple to use. But the problem is, and this is 2021, I'm going to very specific say the year, because 10 years ago, I told people never create a WordPress website because it doesn't work in the search engines. It was terrible. You would have to work hard to get onto page one for terrible keywords. Today, WordPress is at the top. It's one of the best things you can use to create websites that are search engine friendly. So today, right now, the free Wix websites aren't there. The search engine optimization, getting to the top of the search engines, is not easy with a Wix website. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I've seen probably one or two Wix websites up on page one, but of the 25 billion websites that are out there, only seeing one or two isn't much. A vast majority of the websites you see are WordPress. So I tell people all the time, if you can, get a WordPress website over a Wix website. Yeah, it is more difficult. Yeah, you got to get into the techie stuff more. And what I recommend to people is hire somebody to do the initial website, but then at least learn enough about WordPress to go in and do the maintenance yourself, especially if you're a small company, you can't afford someone to hire someone to do it for you. At least hire them to design the site initially, then you can go in and do the maintenance yourself. There's also a lot of other websites that are coming up, like Square Pages is a big one. And the funny thing is that Square Pages actually isn't too bad for SEO. And there's ones that are worse, so forgive me. But if you'd say Wix is at the bottom, Square Pages would be about 2 or 3 pegs above Wix. Not a lot, but a little bit. And then WordPress would be about 1,050 pegs above Square Pages.
Blimey.
And that's really what the difference is. There's actually one that's better. It's actually coding. An HTML website is still the number one way to get to the top of the search engines. Terribly expensive. We'll do a basic marketing WordPress website for about $1,200 right now. An HTML website will cost about $5,000.
Ooh.
So the price difference is so huge that it's, for the small difference it will make in getting you higher in the search engines, just really not worth it anymore.
Right. Okay. But I guess the difficulty is your own technical competence. You're saying a lot of things about being nerdy and techie, and that scares the heck out of people. It certainly scares me. You think, hold on a minute, I can't learn to be a web developer. And that's where I guess people run to the Wix website type functionality. It's very straightforward. But you're saying to go to somebody to start things off for you, what you're saying there then.
Yeah. And of course, if you don't have the money, do a Wix website. Doing something is better than nothing, even if it's a Wix website for now. Get your own domain name. That's the big thing. Get it on. We have our Cool with a K web hosting. You can get your domain names on. You can go to GoDaddy or any of the other places, Bluehost, I think, but get your own domain name. That way, like let's say you start out with a Wix website that's free, and then you upgrade to another website later. It will get moved from Wix to somewhere else. But if you have your own domain name, you control where that name goes to the website. So you don't have to worry about battling someone with your own domain name trying to get your website back later. So that to me is the big thing is get your own domain name and get it at an independent place, really. That way you can move your website wherever you want and still have that control.
Okay. So is it possible that as an individual, you want to start and get your head around the structure of a website, and you can use your domain name to create something, as you say, on Wix, but then hire somebody at a later date where you've got perhaps the template and the ideas, and they could go and make a WordPress website for you, and then you swap the things over from the Wix website on that domain name to a WordPress on the same domain name?
You can use the same domain name, but this is what I recommend when you hire someone to do a WordPress website. You think about it from a marketing perspective. You're going to be saving up marketing dollars as you build your business. Your first marketing dollars should go to your website. Your website is going to be your cornerstone. Websites were here in 1995. They're going to be here in 2025 and 2035. People say, well, Facebook is going to be here the whole time too. And I turn right around and say, well, look at Google Plus. Google's still here, but they completely dropped their Google Plus. Tomorrow, Mark Zuckerberg could say, I don't want to do this anymore and shut off Facebook. He probably won't, but he could. It's his company. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But he can't do that for a website. Your website is yours. And that's another thing I say about Wix is tomorrow Wix could say, we're not going to do this anymore. Or they could say, now you have to pay. And you have to pay every month. And then you're stuck paying them until you get a WordPress website you put on your own hosting. Once it's designed, you're paying about $100 a year, usually, to have your website, your domain name, your email address, the whole 9 yards. So it's not a super lot of money once it's designed. And even the $1,200, there are places that charge more than we do. We do our web design kind of low because our job is to get people to think of us when they want their search engine optimization done. And so we do a slightly lower cost on our web design. And our prices might go up. So don't quote me on the $1,200. That's what we charge right now. But it's unfortunately, all prices are going up right now with everything that's going on. But I really liked what you said about COVID. And to me, this is a big thing. And I don't know if you know this, but in the past 18 months, at least in the US, and I'm in the US, and I'll bet it's probably the same in the UK as well. But in the last 18 months, there have been more people applying for their own business licenses than any other 18-month period of time in the history of the US. So people are seeing the COVID, the opportunities that are there during COVID. Of course, there's a lot of negative parts that have come with it as well, but there are some opportunities also. And I'm really glad to see people striking out on their own and trying it.
Yeah, I guess it's given a chance for people to think. And obviously, there are some people, unfortunately, who've lost their jobs and think, hey, do I want to go and work for somebody again, or do I want to give it a go and see if I can make a success in a different way? So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's say you've got somebody who creates a WordPress website for you. Mm-hmm. Can you explain something about how do you get to the top? What is this SEO phenomenon? What are keywords and how do you use them?
Keywords really are one of the base items for search engines to rank your website. And that's a really good question because you can do the wrong keywords or you can do the right keywords. A perfect example is I did a blog post that was a review. It was probably 6-8 months ago. Now it's a while ago. It had nothing to do with what I do. I had applied for this or not applied for it. I joined this group And it wasn't what I expected. And they were really hyping it. And the review wasn't completely terrible. I tried to do positive and negatives to the review. But I started ranking at the top of the search engines for the name of the company, the name of the guy who had started the company. And none of that had anything to do with my company. So people are going and they're reading the review, but it didn't help me in the least bit. So there are negative keywords as well as positive keywords. And what I ended up doing is I just took the review down, because it really wasn't, maybe it helped people a little bit, but it wasn't helping my company. I shouldn't say I took it down. I moved it to just a different area, really.
Yeah.
I took it off my business website is what I did. And so, yeah, you want to look at your keywords. And here's a trick. Here's something that is going on right now. In 2018, Google did a study, and I don't think their study really actually was looking for this, but they found out in their study that over half of all searches done on Google are for local results. And so they just did in 2021, they started their page experience update, which I think is step one of what they're doing to change their entire search engine from national to local results. So now it's more important to look at your keywords. If you're a New York shoe company, you don't want to just put in the shoes you have, but you want to put in New York or Alaska or whatever cities there might be in your area, or what your main city is. Even if you sell internationally, you want to look at your local market first, and you want to really do your search engine optimization for your local market. The nice part about that is, like, let's say I'm in the Seattle area. So let's say there's this, pick on something. Someone sells light bulbs in Seattle, but you can ship light bulbs anywhere in the world, and everybody needs light bulbs. So if you say your keyword is light bulbs Seattle, the search engines are going to catch just light bulbs as well. So when you do local keywords, it doesn't limit you at all. You're still doing the national ones at the same time. I know it's getting a little bit techy as well, but it's just something to think about when you start looking at, when you're writing articles and you're writing content, start putting in city names that are around you. It's not going to deter anybody. The front of my website says Seattle search engine optimization. I have clients all over the world. And so I don't think where you are. In fact, I work with a company that's in Australia right now. And that's where you are too, right?
I'm in the UK.
Oh, you are in the UK. Okay, my apologies. Yeah. Okay, so, but I'm working with a company in Australia, and right on the front of their website, it says Melbourne, what they do. But I don't care. They're good at what they do. And so I've hired them. And so it really, using the city name, I don't think really deters. And I think it may actually be a little help to trust, because it tells people where you are, whether they're local or not. I might be in Seattle and it might be a Los Angeles company, but now I know that they're in Los Angeles. I know where they are, because people only do business with people they know, like, and trust. Knowing exactly where that company is, I think that location, I think that helps people a little bit with that trust a little bit.
Okay. So what other things we talk about keywords? Is the structure of the website? Is the links that you make on your website? What are the things that help to increase the rankings?
The number one thing that will help increase your rankings is content. It's good quality, well-written content. And that is, more than anything else, is what's going to get you higher in the search engines. That is going to be, I'll say, 50 to 60% of all of your search engine optimization right there. And that's the number one thing that we work on. Our number one is content marketing. So what we call it. I think it's a common keyword now, or a common phrase now. But if you can get your content written right, and written both for people and for search engines, because it's a little bit different for each, and it's kind of tough to mesh that. But if you can get it written correctly for both, then you'll just skyrocket in the search engines.
Right. So this is curious for me now, meaning the content. How does Google or something like that tell whether the content is of value or not? How does it decide that it's good content or bad content?
It's all about the words that you use. And Google is getting so smart now. It used to be where you could write a page. It used to be you wouldn't want, let's say you had 5 or 6 different services or products that you offered, and you had all 5 of them on one page. It used to be you didn't want to do that. You'd want to do a separate page for each one. And even now, that's an advantage. But I want to pick on this a little bit more, because it used to be that if you had 5 different subjects on a page, Google could not distinguish which one was the most important subject. And so it would kind of just ignore the page. nowadays, Google will actually pick even paragraphs out of each page, and you might get higher in the search engine for a page just because of what's on one paragraph. But the big thing is that, number one, all of your content on your website is all relevant to what you do. Like I did that one post. That one post did raise me higher for that one thing, but it could just as easily have confused Google, because here I've written something that has nothing to do with my company. And Google might have said, okay, what's going on here? I'm not sure I like this. Let's sandbox this for a while. And sandboxing is a term meaning you ain't going to get higher, you ain't going to get lower. It's just going to sit there for a bit until Google decides what they want to do with it. Now, of course, if you contact Google, they will tell you there's no such thing as a sandbox. Any other SEO person will tell you, yeah, there is. Google doesn't admit to a lot of the things that they do. But yeah, so you want to make sure that your content on every page is relevant to all of your other pages, that it all fits together and meshes together.
Okay. Now, another term I've stumbled across is white hat and black hat. And so there are clearly things that you should be doing and things that equally you should not be doing. Can you explain the term and what sort of things you should not do?
I can explain that. I love that term. I really do. See, black hat and white hat really goes back to the 1940s, before there were even computers. And the term comes from the old Western movies where the bad guy always wore the black hat and the white guy always wore the white hat. That's literally where it comes from. And of course, that was the way things were up until Clint Eastwood came in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and he wore a black hat. That was the first time a quote good, I don't know if he was really a good guy in the movie, but it was the first time a quote good guy wore a black hat in a movie. So that's really where it comes from. White hat and black hat. And I can, if you look back on older websites, people that have been seeing websites for a while, you may have seen this where you have a web page with information on it, and at the bottom, you've got like 20 or 30 different city names or keywords, and they're just sitting there at the bottom. And maybe they're a lighter color, or even there's this big white blank space at the bottom where they've written the words in the same color as the background of the page.
Oh, okay.
That's all black hat technology. That's all black hat stuff. Another big black hat thing today. I'll call this gray hat. This isn't really black hat. It used to be where you could go and you could hire someone to get 500 backlinks coming to your website. That's links from other web pages coming to your website or backlinks. Google loves backlinks, but Google quickly caught on to that. And any backlink from any website that is considered a spammy website now does you no good whatsoever. You have to have quality backlinks. You got to be from a real company, from a real website, not just what they call a link farm. And so that's kind of a gray hat thing. I say it's not black hat because the black hat stuff you do, you can literally be kicked off of Google. And that is a death knell for businesses, especially these days. The one thing that COVID did was teach us that we're going to go online for everything. It's the number of people who have gone online and the amount of time they spend online quadrupled, I think, in the past 12 months, if not more than that. So think of your business, someone typing in your business name into Google and nothing comes up. That's being kicked out of Google. So it's not even just your keywords. Your website won't even be shown. You do not want to be kicked out of Google. The last time we had a company that we worked with, it cost almost $10,000.
Wow.
Just to get their business name back into Google. And that wasn't keywords. They weren't at the top. It's just their website was back there. It took forever. We had to redesign the website. We had to contact Google several times, guaranteeing them that it was a new company that was working with them. I mean, it was terrible. It's not worth it. It's much more worth it. Spend the time. And yet it takes a little bit more time to get up to the top of the search engines naturally. Spend the time and do it the right way. The white hat is basically anything that the search engines like. There's very little you can do on the internet that's actually illegal. Illegal doesn't really matter. It's whether or not Google likes it, or Bing or Yahoo or whoever you're working with, of course. And you don't want to do the things that they don't like. And and it changes. 10 years ago, if I had two websites and there were different websites, different domain names, but they had the exact same information on them, they would both be blacklisted in Google because it was duplicate content. I even actually had a competitor one time steal one of my websites and publish it 2 or 3 different times, trying to get me kicked out of Google. Luckily, Google, I contacted them and they saw what was going on and there was no problem. But that's how big it was a few years ago. Nowadays, they don't care. Because think about it. A news article comes out. How many news sites do you see it on? 100, 300, 500? So now you will not get blacklisted for duplicate content, but they'll ignore it. It doesn't help you at all. And if you have duplicate content, the big thing there's, and this is a little techie again, but if there is duplicate content, there's a way to say, this is the original article. Look at this one. And that's what Google will do, is they will place that one either higher than all the others or show that one rather than all the others.
Okay. So if someone's now obviously having listened to this saying, look, I need to get an SEO expert. I don't want to try and experiment myself. Obviously, other than yourself, people may want to go local, as some people do.
Yeah.
But what things should people be looking to do? What questions should they be looking to ask? How do they ensure that the person they start to do business with is the kind of person they want to do business with? They have the expertise and the capabilities. How do they go about that?
That's actually very difficult. Probably at least 50% of our clients are people that have been burned by other SEO companies in the past. What I would recommend would be, especially if you're going local, and that's a good thing to go local, is where they are. You go and meet with them in person. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be great at what they do, but at least you'll have a little bit more personal touch with them. Take a look at other sites that they've actually done. Talk to other customers that they've worked with if you can. A lot of our customers, they don't want people to know that they have an SEO company working for them. And so we don't publish very much, but we publish a list of our past clients. And so maybe even look at, if they have a list of past clients, see how long they've been in business. That's a big one. That's huge. If they've been in business a year or two, and forgive me, but don't trust them telling you how long they're in business. You can get on the internet, you can find out when they actually got into business. For instance, if you look up Port Bell's only been an actual corporation since 2015. It was an umbrella name that we used for our company for many years. The original name was Intra Designs. That's from 2002. But in 2015, Intra Designs, the web design didn't really match with what we were doing. And so we used our umbrella corporation to incorporate, the search engine optimization, digital marketing, social media marketing, all that other stuff into what we had already been doing for many years. So you can look to see when the company was actually formed. You can go into your local databases for your government and see that. And I would recommend that.
Right. Okay. That's good. That's helpful advice. Now, people will probably have a vision. They're trying to get that vision down into a context that a person like yourself can say, yeah, I understand what you mean, is probably quite difficult. So can you just say briefly, how do you want the information presented to you? How do you work out what the client really wants? And, is it really that, depending on how much you want to spend, of course, you could spend everything, but so for somebody just starting out, $1,000 or $5,000 will get you something that is very functional and will be close to the top rankings, page 1 or page 2, perhaps?
Well, number one, of course, is getting your website designed right. And we actually have a workbook on our website at portbell.com. If you go there, we have a workbook on our website to determine whether or not your website's even ready for search engine optimization. And that's huge. A lot of websites aren't. Even some WordPress websites aren't ready for SEO. So you want to make sure that's done first. And the workbook that we have, it helps you just determine whether or not it's ready. It doesn't really give you steps on how to fix everything, because unfortunately, a lot of the fixes can be very technical. But at least it lets you know. It gives you information, and information is everything. As far as SEO itself goes, yeah, a lot of it depends. If you're starting out, I'd recommend learning as much as you can yourself. And again, on our website, right at the top, there's a banner that you can do a free DIY SEO course. And then there's no charge for it. So we have a short course there that you can go through yourself to start to learn how to do some of this stuff on your own. We also have several options where we can do like the basic SEO for you and then teach you how to do some of it yourself as well. And then, of course, we do offer our services, and our services range. Yeah, you can pay. We do have some options as little as $600 a month. It all depends on what you're doing, and it goes up as high as $4,000 or $5,000 a month, depending upon how big your website is, how competitive the keywords are. That's a big one. Unfortunately, and I'm sure the UK is very similar to this, the number one keyword in the US, especially about this time of year that we're coming up with, is DUI attorney. Gee, I wonder why. Yeah, we get the holidays coming in and that keyword skyrockets. Trying to keep an attorney's website on page one, especially this time of year, is difficult and can be very expensive. So a lot of it depends on your keywords.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is the key thing coming out here that people don't realize, certainly I didn't, is that you've got to constantly be developing and fine-tuning and adjusting your websites to stay close to the top. That really surprised me when I discovered that.
Yeah, that's true. But I have several smaller websites that I forget about sometimes, and I'll look and they won't be on page one anymore. I'll make one or two simple changes to them and they pop right back onto page one. It's funny because Google tells you that they like web pages that are older pages, pages that have been around for a while. And yet they rank pages that get changed more.
Yeah.
So it's that fine line in between the two, doing it just right.
Yeah, yeah. So before we flip over to the second half of the podcast, just interested to know if you could talk us through perhaps a few client projects you worked on and perhaps still support that demonstrate the power of techniques in SEO in a special way.
I'll pick on one that we just started changing maybe about a year ago. We've been working with a chiropractor for many, many years, and he's been on page one and he's been doing very well. But what surprised me was he wasn't getting a lot of mobile traffic. And so I did about a year, maybe 2 years ago now, I did one simple change. I started doing chiropractor near me, just that simple keyword. That was nowhere on his website before. I did that, and his mobile searches are almost 20, 30% more than the desktop searches. And he's getting more clients than he ever got simply because we figured out that one little keyword. And it is constantly changing. 15 years ago, why would you do near me? People are sitting at their computers. They're not on their phones, but that's how much the mobile phone has changed even search engine optimization, that you have to really look at. You have to look at both. You have to look at desktop searches and mobile phone searches. Even with my company, 5 years ago, we had about maybe 5% of the people looking for us on a mobile phone. And so I never really worried about it. We were still mobile friendly, but I didn't do a lot. We're up to 35% now. Just even an SEO company, why would somebody be on their phone looking for SEO? But they are. That's the thing. They're looking for everything on their phones now. So you got to start looking at mobile phone keywords as well. And that is the tough part. It is constantly changing. There are constantly new things going on. And unfortunately, it seems like you've got either, and forgive me for this, you've got either the really techie guys on one end doing podcasts. Google's doing a podcast now. It is so techie, it's almost hideous. I listen to it and I get confused sometimes. But I like it because they give these little nuggets every once in a while that are great, that I can help people with. But then you've got the other side that are people that have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, and they're trying to tell people they're an expert. And so it's tough to find the right information. That's to me is one of the biggest things these days, is finding the right information. There's even one guy in America who is a very big SEO guy, has a podcast, has a lot of followers, but everything he says is 6 to 12 months old. He doesn't tell people the current stuff because he wants them to pay so that they'll hire him to do the current stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't blame him for that. But unfortunately, I was listening to a podcast for a while. And I kept saying, well, this is old. This is old. Why won't you give me something new? And yeah, it's tough. It's very difficult.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, let's flip now. Something that we talked about a little while ago, that you've become somewhat of a go-to person about employing remote workers.
Yeah.
So something you never expected to happen, but just come out of the ether, shall we say? Excuse the pun.
It sure did, yeah.
And from what I understand, you actually have obviously a team of people working for you, but none of those people are, is this right? They're within 1,000 miles of your office?
Actually, it's 4,000 miles.
4,000.
My closest employee is in the UK. So they're closer to you than they are to me.
So you become somewhat of a go-to person about this. How on earth do you prepare and approach labor markets for potential recruits, especially on a global market scale?
It's not easy, but let me go back a little bit and talk about why I started this, because it's kind of important. When I first started my company, Intro Designs, I wanted to hire only local people. This is in 2002. So hiring remote people was almost unheard of back then anyway, unless you're hiring freelancers. And even that was pretty new. And so I hired a local person. He was amazing. He was a graphic designer, did a fantastic job, just an amazing artist. And one Friday, we're talking about what we're going to be doing the next week and how we're going to be doing this and doing that. And then on Monday, I give him a holler and he doesn't call me back. And on Tuesday, I give him a holler again. I don't hear from him. He doesn't call me back. Finally, on Wednesday, he calls me. Now, I'm in Washington State. He says, I decided to move to California and vineyards over the weekend.
Okay.
And so flaky people are not just remote people. And I was really sad because, like I said, the guy was an amazing artist. But he just disappeared. And so from that day on, I said, I'm only hiring freelancers. And the funny thing is back in 2002, people would sometimes ask, where my employees are. And I'd say they're in Pakistan, UK, and all over the place. And they say, well, I'm not sure I feel comfortable hiring you because you're not completely local. And in the past 12 months, I've had so many companies contact me saying, will you please teach me how to hire remote people? So it's really switched around.
Yeah.
But the big thing is with hiring remote people is you have, and I won't even say this is just remote people, but it's really difficult to figure out what their commitment level is. You don't see them in person. They're not coming to your office. It's a very difficult way of learning to figure out whether or not you actually really want to hire them as an employee. And so what I tell people is hire them as a freelancer first. Give them a job to do. Give them a simple job. And what's going to happen generally is that first job that they do is going to be great. It'll be fantastic. The fourth job that they do will not be great. And their motivation will go down the more that they work with you. I don't know why, because they're getting paid. And they're getting paid by the job. And so if they finish the job, they get their money. But I've had so many freelancers by the fourth job, they won't even finish it. I'll just disappear. And so that's why I say to hire freelancers first, get their commitment level. Every single employee I have was a freelancer when they first started. And I generally find them on either Upwork or on Fiverr. And those are the two big freelance sites that I use. There's a bunch of other ones. You could use whichever one you feel comfortable with, but those are the two that I like the best. And I'll hire them as a freelancer for up to a year. And once I'm very comfortable with them, knowing that they're on the spot, getting the work done, their quality is very consistent, then I'll offer them a part-time position. And I'll tell them they can keep being a freelancer, but I want X number of hours per week. And I hire them on a per week basis. Now, at that point, I usually take it off of the freelance site. And from what I understand, don't quote me, from what I understand, the freelance sites don't mind that too much because I've been using them for that period of time. They've gotten their money. And so we'll do that and we'll see how that goes. And I've done this with all four of my employees. I'll do a part-time for about another 6 months. Then I'll offer them a full-time position, but I'll still tell them on your spare time, you can still do freelance work if you want. I just want 8 hours a day from you. And it's worked out very well. I've probably gone through 300 to 400 freelancers to find the 3 people that work for me.
Cool. That's incredible.
It's
a lot of testing.
There's a lot of flaky people on the freelance sites. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an awful lot of your time though invested in trying to find the right people, isn't it?
In one respect, you can say that, but in another respect, remember, you're hiring them for a job. So you're still getting your job done. And what I love about the freelance sites is if they don't do the job, they don't get the money.
Yeah.
With Upwork and Fiverr, when you have to pay up front, but the money goes into an escrow account, they don't get it until you tell them this is what I want and thank you, here's your money. If they don't do a good job, they don't get paid. And then I can go on to the next one. So that's what I mean by going through it. There's times where I'll go through 3 or 4 different freelancers on one job, but it's not costing me any extra money at all.
Right. But then there is a kind of cost, the time, isn't it? I guess your clients are looking for a quick return on a project.
Yeah, that is true. And sometimes I do have to apologize and tell them what's going on. But what I've found is, especially these days, whether you have a remote employee or someone coming into the office, their commitment level doesn't seem to be much different. I've had people that, in fact, automobile repair companies, there's two in the area that I know the owners personally. Sorry for stumbling here. But both of them are having such a difficult time hiring someone. One of them hired a person, interviewed them. They interviewed great. Second interview, amazing. First day of work, never showed up. First day.
Yeah.
They had the job. They had the money, but never showed up.
Right.
It's amazing what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've seen it and heard it, particularly myself as well. So I do understand that.
Okay.
So just out of curiosity, what do you see as the most important attributes of the people that you want to hire and take on? What are you really looking for?
Well, the nice thing about hiring a freelancer is you're generally hiring somebody that already has the skills that you're looking for. And it's going to be very obvious with the very first project. That's why I say give them a small project first, because you're going to find out whether they really have the skills real quick. And chances are they will. And the freelance sites are getting a little bit more sophisticated where they have like level 1, level 2, level 3 style of people. You're going to pay more for the higher levels, but these are people that have already been around for a while. They've already got great reviews. And look at reviews. Don't necessarily look at the work that they've done, because they can copy that. They can copy anything off the internet these days. It doesn't mean they did it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people I've looked at the work that they did, hired them, and the work they gave me was terrible. I'm like, well, you did this. And then come to find out, no, they didn't do that. They just picked it up somewhere, unfortunately. So, but the higher level people are generally going to be more honest, but that doesn't mean that their commitment level is going to be any better. That's why even at the higher level people, I'll give them a year of being a freelancer before I even think about offering. I've had people where I've offered them a job and they said no. They said, no, I want to be a freelancer. I like doing this. I pick my work. I work when I want to. If I want to take a 2-week vacation, I don't have to ask anybody. I just go. So sometimes people will say no, but if you found a good freelancer, even if they want to keep being a freelancer, you still know they do great work.
Yeah.
And so it's still a big bonus.
Yeah. So it sounds like there are obviously technical things that are must-haves, but there is also behavioral requirements as well. Those sort of commitments, the work ethic that is important. And you can only discover that, you're saying, really, obviously, over a period of time when you tease out the real person behind the facade, perhaps.
Yeah. And one of the things to look at really is what kind of work do you want them to do? One of the people I have is a graphic designer. She does not speak English well. I have a tough time when we talk. She types okay, well enough that I can read it, but I can't really understand when she talks. However, she's a graphic designer. I don't care what she sounds like. She does great graphic designs. And so you don't necessarily have to have somebody that's fluent in a certain language, depending upon what they're doing. Now, if they're writing content for you, this is a big one because we do a lot of content writing and we hire a lot of freelancers for content writing. I have freelancers in at least 10 different countries right now for content writing because I wouldn't want a UK person to write something for America. The reason being is you'll write something, not you personally, but someone in the UK will write something. And in America, it could be a foul word, but it's not in the UK.
Yeah.
I saw that in Australia. I had an American guy wrote something for an Australian guy, and he writes about. He contacts me and says, "We can't publish this. you're saying all these words." I had no idea, but an Australian writer would have known immediately. So content writing, you really have to do based off of the area, at least close to the area that you're in. I can hire anyone in the US and they won't write something foul by mistake. But that doesn't mean someone in New Zealand wouldn't,
so there's a kind of cultural fit and awareness as well, depending on where the project is. Okay.
At least a little bit. Like I said, America is a huge melting pot. There's lots of different cultures, but you can write it in a generic enough style that'll fit anywhere in America. Not that it would fit anywhere in the UK.
Right.
Because the way that you guys write is a lot different than the way that we write. So I would hire a UK person if it was a UK company that we were writing for.
Sure. And let's say you've now got a year or so under your belt with these people. You obviously then, is it right to think you've established a rapport and understanding with those people? You know them at a more personal level, even though you're remote.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Definitely. And another thing that I do is, like, let's say I'll hire them for 2 or 3 hours a day. I will pay them we agree in advance how many hours per day they're going to work. And I will pay them that, whether they actually work that every week or not. Sometimes, because some weeks they might work a little bit more and some weeks they might work a little bit less, but they know, because the commitment level, remember, it has to be on both sides.
Yeah.
When you say that you want them to do work for you, you need to have that money available for them. You need to show that you're as committed or even more committed to this than they are. And so I will make sure that they get paid upfront every week. They have the money and it's always there. They know that I'm always going to pay them. To me, that helps a lot for their commitment level to make sure that they're going to do a good job for me and put me first. That's another big thing. I had a guy who lived in a country where the average wage was $5 an hour. And in America, $5 an hour wouldn't buy you a cup of coffee these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure the UK is, UK and America are very
Much the
close.
same.
Yeah, $5 an hour is nothing. In fact, I think we'd get arrested if we paid someone $5 an hour.
Exactly, yes.
But in his country, that's what it was. I told him, I'm going to pay you $15 an hour because when I hire you, I want you to put my stuff first. And I did. And that helped a lot because he knew that I would pay him more than his average. And plus he did amazing work. He was well worth it. That was another part of it. He was worth the $15 an hour. And so that's another part of it. Yeah.
Then you got established some trust as well, obviously, over a period of time. So again, that's critical.
It's got to go both ways. I know I talk a lot about making sure that they're the right people, but you got to show them you're the right people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just conscious of time now, and I want to ask you one more question, if that's okay. But if somebody wanted to find out more about you, your company, your work, what's the best way of discovering you?
Well, we're on all the social medias, of course. But the best way is just go to our website, portbell.com. The bar at the top, if you want to learn some SEO yourself, it's going to be right there. I have an area called cheat sheets. And one of those cheat sheets is actually the one where you can find out if your website's even ready for SEO. So right on the front page, you'll find a lot of great information. And of course, there's a contact button. You want to contact me, hit that. There's our phone number, or you can fill out the contact form and we'll get back to you as well.
Sure. And I believe you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, the usual social media channels here.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, a podcast.
Yeah, Port Bell or Port Bell SEO on all of them.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm just intrigued now. If you were to reflect now upon past recruitments, what lessons would you say you've learned from both a most successful selection and perhaps one that maybe you've got a few regrets about, something that really highlight now? What would be a great story?
The best story I can think of is I hired a guy. We needed to do a database on a website many years ago, and it's not something I know how to do. And I even told my client, I don't know how to do it. I'm going to have to find someone to do it. And he had no problem with that. I found a guy local, hired him. He did a terrible job. For 3 weeks, I kept trying to get anything from him. And he was always on the phone. He was always talking to me, but I couldn't get anything from him. And when I finally actually did something, it was broken. It was just terrible. I don't know what was going on with this guy that he thought that he could do this. So I finally had to break down after a little over a month and fire him. And I had to contact him and tell him, say, I'm really sorry, but you're not doing the work I need you to do. I need to fire you. And he said, thank you. He realized he was so over his head. It was terrible. He realized that he couldn't do what he thought he could do. And that, to me, that's one of the best stories is so firing someone isn't always the worst thing you can do for them.
Yeah.
And the success stories is with freelancers. Here's the tough part is you get onto these freelance sites. You hire them based on skills. You have absolutely no idea what their personality is like. That relationship part is not there. And it won't be there for a while because when you're first starting to work with them, they're looking at you as a transaction. You're looking at them as a transaction. It takes time for that relationship to get going. So what I like to do is I like to find out where they are in the world and learn a little bit about that and ask them about it. Ask them about where they're living, what's going on, what the weather's like there. Tell them a little bit about your weather. Not a lot, but just little things every once in a while that helps build that relationship up because the relationship is, to me, the most difficult part of working with freelancers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about people at the end of the day, isn't it? Just not, as you say, transactions and doing projects. It goes beyond that you establish, we talked about a rapport before, and I think that's so critical with particularly one-to-one relationships as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that's been really interesting, Ty. I know we've obviously only scratched the surface, and it certainly isn't in the SEO world. It's above my knowledge and competence, but I've learned a lot just from your podcast. I've been listening to your podcast, so thanks very much for that.
You.
And I've been reading your books as well, so I'm sure
awesome.
my listeners have found quite a lot of information here that can be useful. So I was just going to put an extension out to people there. If anybody has got particular needs and requirements, and they'd like to drop me a line, and they'd like you and I, Ty, to discuss things in more detail, I'm hoping we could perhaps get together at some time in the future and perhaps follow those things up.
Oh, Dave, I'd be happy to. That would be great.
Superb. Well, thank you very much again for your time. It's been a brilliant podcast, and hopefully the weather will hold out for you there.
Yeah, thank you. You have a great day.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, Ed. Bye. So there's another Real Life Buyer podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it and it's given you some ideas and inspiration for greater action and achievement. If you are a purchasing or a supply chain professional, business owner or director, come and join my Facebook group, the Purchasing and Supply Chain Community Hub, a safe place to engage with like-minded, friendly people. See you soon. Bye.